This is another one of Fitness Blender's butt and thigh workouts. In this workout, we're going to be doing 10 different exercises in groups of 2 at a time. Once we have 2 sets of those 2 exercises done, then we'll move to the next 2. We have 25 seconds of rest in between each set, and you're going to need a set of dumbbells or some other kind of weighted object to do this routine. Now, we have included a cool down, but we have not included a warm-up, so you'll want to make sure you get one of those in before we get started. Our first 2 exercises, we're going to be alternating back and forth between our deadlifts and squats. So go ahead and pick the weight you want to use for those, and let's get ready. We're going to be starting off with those deadlifts. Let's go ahead and grab that weight, stand up nice and straight and tall, and let's get ready. Keep that back nice and flat, and begin bending from only that hip, tipping straight over forward towards the ground with that chest. Make sure those knees stay relatively straight. You can let them bend, that's perfectly fine, but you want to keep them relatively straight so all that motion is primarily coming from those glutes, from that hip joint. Now you want to make sure you're continually looking at that lower back, you're continually checking to make sure it stays perfectly flat. You never want to let that lower back round. You can let those knees bend a little bit more if you need to, but never ever let that back round. You want to keep it perfectly flat. So those weights should be completely dead in your arms, just hanging straight underneath that shoulder joint. You're trying to get down as low to the ground with those hands as you possibly can each time without letting that lower back round and without over bending those knees. So you actually want to feel like you're almost doing a toe touch with this. Just make sure that back stays flat. Alright, that was our 10th repetition right there, which means we're moving on to squats. Kelly's going to be doing more of a traditional squat, so you can watch her if you want a little easier version, and I'm going to be doing a little bit harder version of a squat, so you can just pick which version you want to do. Now with Kelly, she's going to have a nice flat back. She's squatting down as low as is comfortable, making sure that lower back doesn't round. Those knees are lined up straight over top of those toes, a little bit wider than shoulder width apart with those toes turned out just a tiny bit. You want to make sure the angle on your shin and angle on your chest are the same. Now what I'm doing here is actually a single leg negative squat. So this is almost a single leg squat, but you get a little assist on the way back up. So one leg comes up off the ground, you drop down as low as you can, then place that foot back down on the ground for a little bit of help coming back up. Just make sure you alternate every single time, or you can do just one leg, and then for your second set, do just the other leg. All right, that was 10 repetitions right there, so let's move on to the deadlifts again. We have 2 sets of each of these, so this is our last set of these deadlifts. Again, nice flat back, dropping straight down towards those toes, a little bit of a bend in that knee, but you want to try to get as much stretch out of that hamstring as you can. So try to keep those legs nice and straight. Again, the most important thing with this deadlift exercise is to keep that back perfectly flat. You want a nice straight line from that hip all the way to that shoulder, hinging only from that hip joint as much as possible. Now just keep this motion going nice and slow under control. As you start getting more and more tired, you're going to want to speed up on it. So keep that motion slow. Make sure that back stays flat, keep checking that form, and keep those lungs open. Don't hold your breath. We've got just a few more repetitions to go through. Just 2 left. Nice, slow, controlled motion. And there's your last one right there. Go ahead and let it relax. Go ahead and drop those dumbbells off if you need to. Otherwise, we're moving right back into those squats. Again, I'm going to be doing a single leg squat, and Kelly's going to be doing more of a traditional squat. Just get those hips down as low as you can. Same time, keeping that back nice and flat. You want to try to mimic the angle of that shin with the angle of your chest. Keeping your weight evenly dispersed between the toe of your foot and the heel of your foot. Preferably, though, leaning more of your weight into that heel. Just keep that motion going under control. Again, nice and slow. You want to drop down at the same speed as you're coming back up. Your body's going to try to get you to move faster and faster, so try to control it. The slower you go, the more you're going to get out of it as far as that muscle strength goes and that endurance goes. And there's your last one right there, so let's go ahead and get ready for our next 2 exercises. The next 2 motions we're going to be doing, alternating back and forth, is going to be a reverse lunge and a ski squat. Now that reverse lunge is exactly like a traditional lunge. The only difference is you're going to be stepping backwards instead of forwards. It uses the same exact muscle groups, just in a slightly different way. Same thing with that ski squat. This is almost exactly like a traditional squat, except those feet are really nice and close together. Again, just uses those same muscles in a slightly different way. Now I've got just a few seconds left till we get started with that first reverse lunge. So let's go ahead and grab those weights and get ready. And start them up, stepping back behind you, trying to get that knee down towards the ground as close as is comfortable. Now make sure as you step back, you're evenly dispersing that weight between your front and your rear leg. You don't want to leave that weight in your front leg. You don't want to shift too much of your weight onto your rear leg. You want to have it nice and balanced. Also, make sure you're keeping this motion very, very slow. The slower you go, the more you're going to get out of it. You're almost done. And let it relax. Very good job. We're going to be moving on to those ski squats next. So adjust that weight if you need to. And start them up. Nice deep squat. You want those feet about shoulder width apart or narrower. Getting a nice deep squat as low as you can, as low as is comfortable. And make sure you watch those knees on any kind of squat, but especially this one. Some people have a tendency for those knees to kick in towards each other, and some people have a tendency to have those knees kick out in opposite directions. You want to keep that knee straight out in line over top of your foot, in line with that hip. So you want to make sure you have those knees directly over top of that foot, the same distance apart as those feet are apart. As your last one right here, and let it relax. We're moving back to that reverse lunge. And start them up. Stepping back behind you, nice deep lunge. Remember, the further you step, the harder it's going to be. So try to go as far as you can control, but make sure you're not going so far as to lose balance or to have to use a really jerky motion to come back up. Just keep it under control. Nice, smooth, even pace. We've got just a few more to go. Just one left. And let it relax. All right, we go to our second round of those ski squats. So feet back nice and close together and start up. Nice flat back. Again, with just like with a traditional squat, you want to try to mimic the angle on your shins as much as you can with the angle on your chest. So if your shin and your chest is at the same exact angle, that's going to mean that you have an even weight distribution between your knee and your hip. If you let those knees kick too far forward, then it's too much on your knee. If you bring those knees too far back, then it's too much on that hip. So just try to keep it nice and even. Just mimic that angle in the shin and chest and make sure that everything's staying nice and straight through that back. Is your last repetition right here. And let it relax. All right, go ahead and drop those weights down. Give yourself a little bit of a break. Let's get ready for our next two exercises, which is going to be a sumo squat and a crossover lunge. So again, that sumo squat's going to be just another variation on a traditional squat. You use those muscles in a little bit different way. And then the crossover lunge is going to be a little bit different version of that lunge to hit those muscles in a different way again. Now, both of these motions are very exaggerated motions, so if you've never done them before, make sure you start with a relatively light weight. Let's go ahead and get started with our sumo squat. So we can grab the weight you want to use for that one. Get those feet out really nice and wide, pointing those toes in opposite directions or as close to it as you can control. Then drop it down. Nice deep squat as low as you can go. You're going to feel like you have a pretty limited range of motion with this one just because it opens that hip up quite a bit to a different position, which limits your range of motion a little bit. So just try to focus on getting as much as you can, as much as is comfortable. But main thing is trying to get those feet nice and wide, so at least twice shoulder width apart, and getting those toes pointing in as close to opposite directions as you can. And that's your last one right there. Let's go and move to those crossover lunges. So again, just a traditional lunge motion. Grab the weight you need for that one, and start up. You're going to be stepping forward across in front of your hips. Now try to keep that rear leg facing straight forward, that foot facing straight forward. Don't let that toe rotate at all. And you want to make sure that you're getting a nice long step forward and just a little bit across in front of that rear leg. Now you don't need to take a really long, wide step off to the side. You don't need to hyperextend that leg. You just need a little tiny bit of a step across in front of that rear leg. And that was your last one right there, so go ahead and let them relax. We're going to move back to those sumo squats, so grab the weight you need for that one. Get those feet out really nice and wide, turn those toes out, and start them up. Nice deep squat. Now you probably saw this on the first one, but Kelly is using just one dumbbell for this exercise, which is perfectly fine if it feels more comfortable to use it that way. I'm using both. It's just a little bit different way of holding that weight. But to tell you the truth, there is absolutely no difference in how those legs respond to it. So just whatever is more comfortable for you. Just keep focusing on a nice straight back, getting those hips down as low as is comfortable. It's your last one right there. And let it relax. All right, go ahead and drop those weights down or pick that weight you need for those crossover lunges. We have one more round of those. And start them up. Stepping forward and across. Remember getting that foot just a little bit to the outside of that rear foot. The longer step you take, the harder it's going to be. So take as long of a step as you can control without starting to lose your balance and without feeling like you're jerking to get back up. All right, I have just a few more repetitions to go. Keep focusing on that form. Just one more. And let it relax. Good job. All right, you got another 25 seconds of rest. Go and drop those dumbbells down. We're moving to our next exercises, which is going to be a jump squat and a power skip. Now, this is more of a plyometric type exercise, but it's still really, really good for building up overall strength and muscle development, as well as just overall cardiovascular endurance. And we're going to start these up here in just a few seconds. All right, let's go ahead and get ready. We're going to be starting off with those jump squats. Remember, there's no extra weight with this one. And begin. Nice deep squat, then jump as hard as you possibly can, getting those feet as high off the ground as you can, making sure you're pushing 100% effort into every single jump. We're almost done. And go ahead and let it relax. That was our last one. We're moving on to power skips next. We're doing 20 total, 10 on each leg. So go ahead and start them up. This is just like skipping when you were a kid. The only difference is you're trying to push a little more effort into it to try to get up off the ground as high as you possibly can, trying to drive those knees as hard as possible, trying to drive that opposite arm from leg up as high as possible. Just keep it going, 100% effort. And let it relax. Nicely done. Let's move back to those jump squats. Again, nice deep squat with a hard jump. Down nice and deep, get those hips down to at least knee height, then jump as hard as you possibly can, get those feet off the ground as much as possible. Almost done. 2 more. And let it relax. Nicely done. All right, back to those power skips, another 20. And begin. Drive that knee, that opposite arm comes up, trying to get as much effort as you can, pushing straight up off the ground, trying to get as much distance between you and the ground as you can. I know those legs are really tired by this point. You don't feel like you can really hardly get off the ground at all, but just keep pushing it as hard as possible. And let it relax. Good job. That is the end of those 2 exercises, which means we're moving on to our next 2. It's going to be 10 prone bent leg raises and 10 bridges. This is just to finish off those glutes just a little bit more. Now, these are obviously being done on the ground, so if you're doing this on a hard surface, you might want to put a blanket or an exercise mat down just to give yourself a little extra cushion. Otherwise, doing this on a soft carpet, something like that, is perfectly fine. So let's go ahead and get ready. We'll be starting off with those prone bent leg raises first. So face down. You're going to curl those feet up so your knees bend about a 90-degree angle. And then squeeze those thighs up off the ground as high as you possibly can. Facing down towards the mat the entire time, engaging that lower back, those glutes, as well as those hamstrings. You want to primarily be feeling this in those glute muscles, those butt muscles. So really focus on trying to get a nice tight squeeze in that area. And let it relax. It's your last one. We're going to flip you over onto your back for bridges next. Kelly and I are going to be doing 2 different versions, so you can pick whichever one you want. I'm doing the harder version. Kelly's doing the slightly easier version. You're going to pick those hips up really nice and high, tight squeeze, shoving those hips up towards the ceiling, getting a tight squeeze in those butt muscles. I'm doing it with a single leg. That makes it just a little bit harder, and Kelly's doing it with both legs. The form is exactly the same. The only difference is I have one leg kicked up in the air. I'm doing the hardest version right here with a straight leg. You can also bend that knee to a 90 or keep that leg out straight in line with that other thigh. Just pick which version is comfortable for you and just try to keep it consistent all the way through. Now that's your last one right there. Go ahead and let those hips drop back down. Let it completely relax. Roll back over onto your stomach. We're doing one more round of those bent leg raises. So bend that knee. And squeeze those thighs up off the ground. Nice tight squeeze. Again, focusing on getting a tight squeeze in those butt muscles and those glutes. Just keep that motion going, nice and slow under control. You want to make sure that you're bringing those legs up and dropping them back down at the same pace. You're going to have a tendency to want to drop those legs really, really quickly. So try to fight against it as best you can. Keep it nice and slow on the way down, as well as nice and slow on the way up. Just keep it going. Lungs open, nice tight squeeze. And just one more, squeeze it up, tight squeeze, and let it relax. All right, go ahead and roll back over. We got our last round of bridges. I'm going to be switching over onto that opposite leg, doing that single leg. Kelly's going to be still doing that regular base with both feet. Just bring those hips up off the ground as high as you can. Nice tight squeeze. Now make sure you're not pressing your weight into the toe of your foot. You want to try to keep the weight back in the heel of your foot. Especially if you're feeling that calf cramp up, it means you're trying to push too much weight into your toe. So just keep that weight back in that heel and those shoulders. Try to get as much range of motion out of this as you can. Trying to make sure you're getting as tight of a squeeze as possible at the top of that range of motion. You've got just 2 more repetitions to go. One left, tight squeeze at the top. And let it relax. Good job. That is the last one of those bridges, which means we are done with that first part of that routine. All we have left is our cool down and stretch. We're going to be doing 25 seconds per position. Let's start off with walk-ups. You're going to kick one leg up straight above your hip. Slowly walk up that leg as you exhale, and slowly inhale as you walk back down. Take your time. It's a nice slow squeeze on the way up. Try to keep that leg as straight as you can. With that toe flexed back towards you, it's going to be more of a stretch on that hamstring. With that toe pointed up towards the ceiling, it's going to be a little bit less. Now just make sure you're keeping those lungs open. Exhaling as you walk up, inhaling as you walk back down. We're almost done. And walk up and hold it. You're going to get a nice tight squeeze on this one. Flex that toe down towards you to get a little extra stretch. And let it relax. Slowly walk back down. We're going to switch sides. We're going to do the same exact motion on that other leg. So get that other leg up there nice and straight. And start that walk. Exhaling as you walk up. Inhaling as you slowly come back down. Just take your time. Really stretch that leg out. Take a short little pause at the top every single time. Trying to get just a little bit further up that leg than you did the time before. And we're almost done. Walk up that leg one more time. And we're going to hold it up there. Walk up and freeze it. Get that leg as straight as you can. Flex that toe down towards you for a little extra stretch. A little bit longer. And let it relax. Slowly walk back down that leg. We're going to move to a deep glute stretch. One leg crosses over top of the other. You're going to grab behind that thigh of the bottom leg and pull it in nice and close. So you should actually feel this stretch in the butt, in the glute muscle of that leg that's on top, the one that's crossed over top. So just squeeze it in nice and tight. Now if you look at me here, my right leg is actually on the bottom, my left leg is on top, so I should be feeling the stretch in that left leg. So hold it for just a little bit longer. Just breathe normally, keep those lungs open. Let's go ahead and switch sides. Cross that other leg over top, grab behind that thigh. Make sure you're grabbing behind that thigh and you're not grabbing behind that knee or in front of that knee. You want to just grab that thigh. Squeeze it in as close as is comfortable. Hold it there. Again, breathing normally, keeping those lungs open. Just a few more seconds to go. And let it relax. All right, we're going to be doing a hamstring and torso stretch. So go ahead and sit up on your tailbone. Kick one leg out. The other leg's going to be tucked in as close as is comfortable to that groin. You're going to reach down to that straight leg with the same arm as leg. And then that opposite arm, that outside arm, is going to come up over top of your head. You want to actually try to keep those shoulders perpendicular to the ground. So try to open that chest up towards the wall in front of you as much as you can. Just keep stretching over as much as you can. You should feel this for that hamstring as well as the outside of that torso. So a few more seconds to go. And go ahead and let it relax. We're going to switch sides. So kick that opposite leg out, tuck that other leg in, stretching down towards that straight leg. Other arm comes up over top. Again, feeling this through your hamstring as well as that outside of your torso. Just keep that motion going. Breathing normally, keeping those lungs open. Just a few more seconds to go. And let it relax. We got our butterfly stretch next. So with this one, those feet are going to come together right in front of your body, pulling them in as close as is comfortable. You can grab those feet if you want to, or you can just have those hands on those ankles or those thighs. You're going to use the muscles to the outside of that thigh to pull those knees down as far as you can go. You should feel this stretch to the inside of that groin, to the inside of that thigh. Just keep constantly pulling those knees down. Keep that chest up. Keep those lungs open. Make sure you're not holding your breath. Just keep pushing through it for a little bit longer. We're almost done. And let it relax. Let's go and move on to a downward facing dog. So come up onto those hands and feet. Those hands and feet should be just about shoulder width apart. You're going to come up to a V position or a triangle position off the floor. You want to keep a nice straight line from your hip down to your wrist. So shove that chest down towards your toes. At the same time, keep those legs as straight as you possibly can and keep those heels pressed in towards that floor. So you want to feel your calf stretching, your hamstring stretching, as well as a little bit through that chest and that lower back. Just keep pressing into it. Try to keep everything nice and flat, nice and straight. Go ahead and let it relax. We're going to move into a calf plank stretch, so drop down into almost a push-up position. Those hips can kick up. That's perfectly fine. The main thing you want to focus on is keeping a straight leg, pressing that heel down towards the ground as much as you can, getting a good stretch to that calf. Just a few more seconds to go, then we're going to switch sides. And go ahead and switch it. Cross that foot over to the other side. Again, same exact position, just staying down in that push-up position, kicking that heel down towards the ground, that opposite leg up. Try to keep that leg straight, the foot that you're standing on. You want to keep that leg as straight as you can. Just really trying to mainly focus on getting a really good stretch to that calf. So if you need to kick those hips up a little bit higher, drop them down a little bit lower, just wherever you're feeling that stretch. And let's go ahead and move it on to our next one, the COBRA stretch. Let's go ahead and lay flat down on the ground, bring those hands down to the base of your rib cage, press into the palm of that hand, arch that chest up nice and high as is comfortable. If you can't lock your elbow out all the way, that is perfectly fine. Just go up as high as is comfortable for you. Now you also want to kind of tilt that head up towards the ceiling just a little bit and try to press those shoulders down away from you as much as possible. Try not to let those shoulders press up into those ears. So constantly pushing those hands down towards the ground, kind of pushing that chest up towards the ceiling. Just breathe normally, keeping those lungs open. We're almost done. And let it relax. We're going to move back into a child's pose. So sit back into those heels, those hands stretching out in front of you. Let that lower back stretch out as much as you can. Let those knees and hips kind of stretch a little bit. Stretching those hands away from you so you might even feel it in that chest some as well, in the inside of that shoulder. Just roll it around if you need to find a little bit more of a stretch on the left or right side of that torso. Keeping those lungs open as much as you can. Pressing into a shell stretch now, so those hands are going to come back to those knees. Pressing the palm of that hand into the ground, actually trying to round that upper back, that lower back as much as you possibly can. So you're trying to pull those shoulders back down towards those hips. Again, keeping those lungs open, breathing normally. And let it relax. And we are done. This workout is complete. You just finished Fitness Blender's butt and thigh workout for a bigger butt.